since 2024, during Christmas time, in 31 prefectures in Japan, through 78 companies, 16,000 toys got distributed to the population. A lot of them ended up in what I would say gigantic versions of gumball machines that were used in a kind of gambling activity. And these toys were for children 12 and up, but most of the time they were acquired by young adults who are doing a kind of gambling using these little machines. And the item that is in question is a 6-shot revolver. Now, the 6-shot revolver has a cylinder that rotates. That's the revolving part. And each of those has a chamber, 6 of them. And in those chambers, you would place a 20 millimeter long plastic object that was meant to represent an entire cartridge. But when you pull back the hammer and fire it, or just pull the trigger and have the hammer go back and fly forward, it would hit the back of it and it would shoot out of the gun. Now, it was mistakenly made while in China in a way that made it to where the barrel's bore axis and the bore axis for the chamber was 100% straight alignment. There wasn't any defect in it, and it didn't have any slop factor. Okay, that sounds like a properly made, well-made toy. But the problem is, they also picked a size that was somewhat close to either A, a real cartridge, B, significantly larger than a real cartridge, but was a size for a piece of tubing or pipe, or J, one that an actual barrel could be jammed in. Okay, let's go. These were made in China, and you can get them. I have a link to an Amazon link that ends in 727R below, under Toys and Games, and it's listed as a Nerf gun revolver, 2 of them, $5 a pop. And they use the expression Nerf gun as a generic name rather than being Nerf, because it throws a projectile. Nerf, if you're not aware of it, uses air, a compressed air source, around something that will make it impossible for you to put anything that's even resembling a cartridge in it. Anyway, this is called the Real Gimmick Mini Revolver. You can look it up that way and you'll find the information about it. Because these chambers inside of the cylinder were aligned correctly with the barrel, which is something you're supposed to avoid, but sometimes apparently the design you can't. This was listed by an agency in Japan as potentially lethal if you loaded it with a real cartridge. Now, please understand, obviously that's not its intent. If you tried to make it to where it would do that, suddenly the toy projectiles wouldn't be able to come out correctly. But anyway, they instituted a buyback grace period or a surrender it grace period till the 1st of 2026. Possession or sale of them could result in punishment as a violation of their firearms and swords and other weapons or armaments control laws and regulations. These are regulated under acts controlling real and imitation arms, possession, etc. There were 15 others that had the same unfortunate outcome with them. Now, the reason for this being a very odd story is they've known about this since midsummer 2022. And I only know of one of them right now, only one, that shows up on Amazon. Some context from people in Japan. How can this structurally be capable of firing live ammunition? Doesn't have to be. I'll explain that in a minute. Japan's National Research Institute of Police Science, NRIPS, or NRIPS, is known for overestimating lethality of items or refusing to accept anything existing on the market that could possibly be used as a firearm, and I'm going to explain why. A, they're doing it to justify arbitrary crackdowns and overregulation, or B, because people be creative, and kids are the most terrifyingly creative things that we know of, next to mad scientists, etc. Now, this group was notorious for having independently developed custom-made cartridges. They're using that word with quotes around it on the places I'm seeing it posted. I've only seen 2 postings about it, but here we go. They can be fired from anything that's made out of tubing, just so they can be declared as being capable of firing a cartridge. Now we're at the point where I'm going to do the state of Oregon disclaimer. In the state of Oregon, currently, it is not illegal to make, keep, and bear arms if you follow the rules. And then, because the legislature and, unfortunately, the voting public voted in a set of rules where they don't have a clear path how to obey the law, you're functionally unable to make your own DIY firearm. You can, however, make a muzzleloader. Now you know where we're going here. Now I'm going to describe this. I'm not going to demonstrate it. I'm just going to describe it. Any cap gun made, literally, actually, all of them even currently, apparently, have a potential of having been molded by just getting an actual firearm and just molding the parts in plastic instead and putting them out as an extremely accurate, unfortunately very accurate, imitation of the original firearm. It may be made entirely in plastic, it may be molded in such a way that it's got a shell around it, but it is technically a copy of a real firearm in many cases. Many companies made toy guns that had made real ones. They just used the original molds and stuff they used for the original designs and just made new molds based on the ones they had left and just made toys and just used pot metal, zinc, aluminum is used sometimes. The problem with this, some companies noticed by accident or on purpose that you could just make real guns out of cap gun toy metal and they would fire properly several hundred times, and then realized all they had to do was reinforce it in a small number of ways and it would work. One of them is called a skeletonized firearm, which a lot of cap guns were. They were made out of steel skeletons that were electroplated with zinc, and then they were put in a mold and zinc was poured around them and spun to where it would hollow it out and remove as much zinc as possible while leaving the outer surface. Zinc inherently doesn't want to decay. They would sandblast the surface and spray paint them, or just dunk them in paint, and make it to where you had a toy gun that would work. Now again, that was just a cap gun, but it had a steel reinforced body and it was made out of usually zinc, otherwise known as pot metal. Now, the important part about this is this metal, zinc, happens to be the pest material, pesting, that you find in good quality steels, because you're supposed to get that stuff off before you melt it down to make it back into steel, because it'll get in there and cause all sorts of crystal patterns that make the metal somewhat weaker. On the other end of it, zinc, it doesn't care what's in it, it's already low grade. But if you did a steel reinforced zinc toy gun, the things would tolerate not 100 shots or 10 or 15 shots, but thousands. And these became the ring of fire, low temperature melting guns that were legally restricted and still are. While you can make one of these things, you have to make it have a certain minimum amount of steel, simply because making a weak, badly made gun is just damn dangerous and dumb. The next thing is they would warp on being made unless they were engineered perfectly. But these were cap guns. But people figured out, to reinforce a cap gun barrel that's steel tube shaped, they would use an actual steel tube in a lot of them. Or one that had a lot of perforations, a metal mesh, whatever. Now, why am I bringing this up? Some of these plastic guns have steel frameworks in them. Uh-oh. So when they claim it is structurally capable of firing a live round, it was. Now, we don't have the results. We're not seeing any videos of this. They're not demonstrating any of it because that would make people in their country more curious. They're just trying to get rid of them. So what's the real deal here? Okay, well, let's just say it's completely made of plastic. I had one of these, by the way, a while ago. I had a toy cap gun like this just because I got one, because I was bored one day. And I noticed that, all the parts aligned, which is not supposed to be done. Even a blank firing gun, which is technically in some cases, an actual firearm, but they deliberately designed it to where the top of the cylinder is off so that if you did load a cartridge in it or put a replacement cylinder in, the bullet wouldn't go through, it'd break the gun, and you wouldn't do it again. It teaches you a good lesson. They presume that you made a mistake or you're an idiot. The idea is to make it to where it self-destructs if you try to use it for what it's not intended for. Also, converting a blank firing gun to a real one is legally extremely dubious at best, and at worst, it's a felony immediately because, number one, you're using it for a purpose it's not for. Based on the flip side, they give it an exemption because it's a noisemaker, because it can technically be used to signal alert. It's got 6 shots. 3 shots is an alert for help. And then wait a while, 3 more shots with blanks. That way, legally, you could sell it as being a piece of safety equipment. It's not just some sort of loophole. It was an excuse to say, okay, you can make it. But make sure the barrel's off-centered so the bullet can't go through, if there was one. Make sure it can't chamber a cartridge that has a real bullet. And then make sure it has what's called a shredder in the barrel. That means it'll capture the bullet, rip the barrel off, and break the dang thing. Again, it's just supposed to make noise. And another thing is, some of them have a muzzle device you put on so you can fire a flare. It actually fires an authentic, real 300-foot altitude flare. It goes up about 100 meters, and it's technically a safety device. It's a signaling device. It can be a noise signaling device or a flare. I know a little bit too much about this kind of stuff because I learned way too much about it. The rest is not relevant. So, why am I doing this video? Okay, we're near 12 minutes, so if you're still watching this, which nobody does, here's what was going on. People were noticing that they could, because it was designed to take a toy fake, plastic nerve, plastic object that would be hit by the force of the hammer and throw it out the barrel and fly as much as 30 feet away, which is not very much. It's literally a pea shooter. That's what they called these things. You put peas in them and load them. Same idea. Someone noticed that, the inside diameter of this fits this plastic thing, but a piece of metal tubing can be put into it, and you just make it to where the cylinder no longer rotates. You pull the tube back out, put the cartridge into the tube, and slide it back there. It would actually fire the cartridge. And it would fire it poorly, but given enough tubing, almost anything is still technically lethal. Or they would just load in nail gun blanks and then put, an actual bullet from a rifle or just a chunk of metal or whatever. Or what actually happened was, and this is only one case, and it was not in Japan, it was another country, some kids got a hold of these and they loaded actual fruit pits they could jam into the cylinder and then right behind it put in a very overpowered blank, like the ones you can't get in the United States, the ones that you see people using on YouTube videos from Britain where they're trying to break a rock with them because that's what they're good for. And someone got hurt. Nobody killed, but that's the idea. The thing is, it's not that it's gun-shaped or whatever. That's also something that could be used in a robbery. It's that it can technically fire, as the quote goes, a shot. It only has to be able to do it once. If it can ever do it at all, in many city, counties, or states, or in an entire country like Japan, it's considered a regulatable item because it could be. In the United States, you can buy a 12-gauge flare gun that's made entirely out of plastic, only because, again, it's a signaling device. It's got an exemption for the signaling device. It's made to blow itself to hell. And anybody who wants to do it will never do it again because, oh my God, it's very, very, very unpleasant. But this thing was able to tolerate the shot, and therefore it didn't teach anybody a painful and quick lesson, so they would stop doing it, so they might do it again. Anyway, you can get them in pairs, $5 a pop. I'm not buying it because I already saw what it is. It's not something I want. But I wanted to point out that this is the kind of thing, as the joke goes, rules are created by the idiots that do them when they're not against the rules. And this was caused by, years and years ago, people taking cap guns, using a drill, and making it to where it would technically work just long enough to blow itself up or actually hurt somebody. Or in some cases, be used in a real crime, including a couple of murders. So I just thought this was odd of a story to randomly see from months ago show up in my feed. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. Hopefully this was educational for all of you. Sure as heck was me.